Hello folks, and welcome back to Exploring Multimedia Art with PD Loric. I'm Dr. Lawrence W. Moore, your host. And for the next few episodes, we're going to be working with Gem. Gem is an external library that can be used with Pure Data or PD Loric or even Per Data. That allows for a lot of things to happen. It uses your OpenGL, your Open Graphics library on your video card in order to do 2D art, 3D art, video, webcam, all sorts of graphical things coming into one place. And of course, with Pure Data, you can have this interact with your audio. And so really your imagination is the limit. In recent years, Gem it wasn't being developed for a little while. The last it was updated was 2013 for a while, and now it's starting to be developed again. And there's a little bit of issues here and there, but if you're using the Gem within PD Loric, most everything works. We're still going to have to look into the video thing to see if that is still working with the newer codecs and everything like that. But as far as 2D, 3D, and the stuff that you build rather than just actual video, all that stuff I've been testing out and it's working just fine. So let's go ahead and learn the basics of Gem. Okay, so the way we're going to start here is we're going to look at where Gem is on your computer, because it does have a bearing on some things. If you're a Mac and you're using Finder, you're going to want to browse to your applications folder, like on the left side, and then find PD Loric. Right click on it and go to Open Folder. And then you'll see the inside of the PD Loric folder. For those of you in Windows like me, this is where you can find it. It's on your C drive. Now, at the time of making this episode, for Windows, there is no 64-bit version that's functioning right now, so it's a 32-bit version on Windows, so it's in your program files x86. This may change in the future where the 64-bit version will work and it'll be in your program files folder. The problem is I tried even going to the GitHub site and compiling the 64-bit version following the instructions, and there was an error, and it wouldn't let me do it. I was able to compile the 32-bit version, but not the 64-bit version, even though I followed the instructions. So I have a feeling that's something that's being worked on. But anyway, in your program files x86, you go to, I scrolled past it, PD Loric. So now, both Mac and Windows users, in PD Loric, there's a folder called Extra, and a folder in here called Gem. Right here. Now, what I'm recommending for Windows users and Mac users, if you have a problem with going through the examples through PD Loric's help browser, which I'll show you in a minute, this is what you might want to do. Go into this folder Gem here and take this examples folder, copy it, and then what you do is you paste it into like your documents folder. Like I have in my documents folder a folder called PD Loric, and I put Gem examples here, and of course all the stuff for this series is in this folder. But I put the Gem examples here because one thing I found, at least with Windows, Not sure if it's true with Mac. Some of the examples don't work right because some of the examples load images and stuff. And when the examples in this folder are being accessed, since it's in one of your program files folders, Windows doesn't like, for security reasons, to have PD Loric opening up files in here for some reason, and they just don't load. But when I put this examples folder over here, my documents folder somewhere, it works. And I just renamed it Gem Examples. And so we're going to see the help browser in a minute in PD Loric, but basically the same things are here. It starts off in chapters, 01, basics, and then they're numbered in order, all the help files here, where you open up these patches. And these line up with the same ones that are in PD Loric. So let me show you that now. I'm going to open PD Loric. And yeah, I minimized the window the last time I used it, so it saved that and minimized it again. All right, so here, let me show you. When you go to help and you go to help browser, scroll down, and there's a link for Gem. Don't go to this. This is a link of all the Gem objects in alphabetical order. And you don't want to go through them in that order. You want to go through them in order of like easiest to more advanced and harder things, you know, so you can go in order of your learning. So you click on examples here. These are the same folders. You see basic, advanced, that are in the Gem examples folder that I just showed you. So instead of doing it from here, because these are accessing the Gem examples folder in the extra folder in PD Loric, in program files, and on Mac it would be in applications, of course. And if you have any trouble using some of them from there, just do what I did and copy that folder out to your documents file, and then you could go through the same ones in the same order. The first few of these works, but when I get to one where you load in images, the image files don't get loaded in, and it's because of that thing where they're located on the computer. PD Vanilla has started using the documents folder as a place to store its externals, and I think this has a lot to do with that. But these are your examples in order. I am not going to use these. I'm going to be kind of showing you on my own, but I just wanted you to be aware of these. That's kind of like where you can see examples in order. One thing I want to point out here, since we know now where Gem is located on the computer, if you want to be able to have the Gem libraries always running, you see how they're in my list here, Gem? They're loaded into PD Loric, and I can use the Gem objects. It's working. When you download PD Loric and you install it, this doesn't happen automatically. You need to set this up. And so I'm going to show you a way to set this up that the Gem libraries are loaded automatically every time you open PD Loric. And then I'll show you a workaround in case you have trouble doing this. Basically, if you go into the edit menu from the PD Loric console here, go to preferences, you go to startup. Now you see I have these in the list here. I'm going to put them in again just to show you what you need to do. So I'm going to delete it, and I'm going to delete this down here. Basically, this is saying when PD Loric starts up, load these libraries. In this top path, you basically set a path, which basically means folder location for the library you want to be included. in your paths. And so you want to do that if you want gem to be loaded automatically. So you go to New, and then you got to type in that path. Now, probably the easiest way of doing that is to browse for it once again, at least in Windows, and I have a feeling the same type of thing would work in Mac. But basically, we want to get this location, and rather than making sure we type everything exactly correctly, we're going to look for PD Loric again. We're going to look for extra, and then we're going to look for gem. Okay, so now up here, if I click in this bar in Windows, you see it gives me the reduced form of this. I can hit Control-C to copy this. In Mac, the copy command is Command-C, but I'm hoping in Mac you can get a similar thing like this where you see C:, that's your drive, backslash, probably applications, backslash, PD Loric, backslash, extra, backslash, gem. Or you could type that in directly. The only difference in the location here between Windows and Mac would be Windows, it's program files x86. In Mac, it should just say applications and then PD Loric, and the rest should be the same. So let's copy this over here. And I'm going to hit Control-V to paste. Well, wait a minute. Let me delete that and do it again. New. Control-V to paste. Command-V in Mac when you're pasting. All right. And then we need to add the library name right here. Go to New, and capital G, lowercase em. And then I usually hit Enter to make sure it takes. Actually, that seemed to put a little extra space on it, didn't it? In PD Vanilla, usually you got to hit Enter there. Let me just do this again. Get rid of that. Yeah. Get rid of that Enter. So now I'm just going to click outside of that. It kept gem in there. Okay, we're good. Now I'm going to hit Apply and OK. And typically what you need when you just add this is to start PD Loric again. I'm going to try and do it through this method. There we go. Okay, and then what you do is you look here to see if you see gem, and it's usually at the bottom. Since you just added this library, it'll be the last thing it does. When you see these gem lines here, that means it worked. If you see some error messages here, then it didn't work. But there's still a workaround for that. You can delete that stuff from your startup if it didn't work. But what you'll need to do now, and now we're going to start patching and making stuff, but what you'll need to do, if that didn't work, you don't have to do that if this did work. Sorry here. Trying to get this, get me as much screen as I can get here and leave space to the side because we're going to have a gem window coming up here. All right, but what you do, if that didn't work for you, you could just make an object, and you'll have to put this in every patch where you're going to be using gem objects. You type declare -lib, that's declare space -lib space capital GEM. Just like that. This will then load in the gem library for you. And you might say, well, that's easier to do. Okay, fine. But then you need to do that every time that you open up. Now, my gem libraries are already loaded, so I don't need to do that. But that's what you'll need to put in to your patches each time if the other method doesn't work. I like using the other method because I'm going to be using Gem a lot, and I just want it automatically working each time. Okay, so let's take a look at something here. First thing we need to start off is with an object called JamWin. G-E-M-W-I-N, all lowercase. Now, if this object didn't make, if you get this dotted outline stuff, that means one of your methods of opening the Gem libraries didn't work. Like that declare -lib gem. I mean, that should work. Or if the other method that I showed you, I mean, then you got to troubleshoot that. But I don't see any reason why using one of those two methods doesn't work. Maybe you have a typo. Remember that object is declare space -lib space capital G lowercase e lowercase m. All right. And that's how you have to type gem when declaring it as a library. So anyway, JamWin. Now what this does is this allows us to open up the window that Gem uses to put things in. There's a couple of messages that you can use. I'm going to make a simple message here called create. And then a message here. These are message boxes, by the way, not objects. Destroy. And you got to spell it right. Now, what these messages do, you hook them up to the left inlet of JamWin, is they open up the window, and then they close it. Now, there's a little bit more to it than that. Now, your window may look black when it opens up. I was playing around with Gem and doing some things last night, and when it initially opened, it was black, and somewhere along the way, it started opening up with a white background. But in any case, I'm going to make another thing here called a toggle, an object, toggle. We've made plenty of those. You can also send the message 1 or the message 0, the number 1, the number 0 for turning Gem on or off. See, these open the windows. This turns on and off rendering. So I'm going into run mode again so I can click these. Create. Now Gem is rendering. There's nothing to render. There's nothing in here and stuff. But you see Gem has this menu bar at the top. And I did experimenting and stuff, and I found that, you know, there was a command called menu bar 1, menu bar 0 to take the menu bar on or off if you wanted to. And it doesn't work anymore. So what I've found, we're going to turn Gem off, and then we're going to destroy the window. It's always good to make sure you turn it off before destroying, and then create it before you turn it on. All right. We can actually make this easier because we can make messages that have multiple lines in it. But let's say we don't want that menu bar. Well, then you type in the first part of the message, reset, then a comma, then create. We're putting basically multiple messages in the same one. And then we'll put a comma and 1. That way rendering will turn on as soon as the window comes up. And what we're going to change with destroy is we're going to make sure that a 0 goes through to turn rendering off, comma, destroy. That way it always turns off rendering before the window closes. Okay, so now let's see what happens with this reset added. You see that? It opens up without a menu bar. And it created the window, and also it is rendering right now. It's operating. Now, here's another thing I like to do. By default, this is the size of the window. I have a feeling this is something like 640 by 480, maybe. I'm not sure. But I like to put in the command, and now you want to put this in right after reset and before create. It's called Daemon, well, D-I-M-E-N, meaning dimensions, but it's abbreviated, Daemon. And then I'm going to put a size that'll be convenient for us fitting on screen here. If I put 1920 by 1080, it'd take up the whole screen because that's the screen resolution I'm using. 1280 by 720 would also be too big. So I'm going to cut those in half. 640 by 360. Let's cut that in half again and make it 320 by 180. So it's nice and small, and we can kind of see what we're doing and have the rest of the screen at the same time. So we need to destroy the window first and then open it again. Now this did work for me before, but it's not right now. Hold on here. Reset, comma. Let's make sure there's only one space here. There's got to be a space. D-I-M-E-N space 320 space 180 comma space create. There we go. Let's destroy. Do that again. Oh, it is opening. Hold on. Hold on here. Let me do this again. Zoom out. It's opening, but maybe that's a little too small. Okay, so let's destroy. You don't want to change any of these things while Gem is rendering or while the window's open. I found that you can kind of change that while the window's opening, but I like to be on the safe side because you could have things crash on you pretty easily if you especially have rendering going on. So that's why I put the 0, destroy. That way I close the window anytime I'm changing some of this stuff. Well, actually you can change this stuff, but you don't want to click it again until you've removed the window as it was, and then you put it back again. So let's hit 640 by 360. So that's kind of like half the screen resolution of 1280 by 720, which is an HD resolution. This technically isn't, it's too small, but it's the same proportions. And let's see. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to hide you. The 320 by 180 was too small. So I'm going to have this window right alongside my patch. Take up as much of the screen this way as I can. And I'll just build downwards. There we go. So now we can have both on the screen at the same time. Now, there are other messages you can send to JamWin that we'll explore later. Like you can change perspective and the view coordinates. Basically, this is almost like a camera viewing. Right now it's blank, but it's almost like a three-dimensional world, a three-dimensional space here. And you can view it from different perspectives, almost like different camera angles. And those are things that you can work with. And you can work with lighting and stuff like that. It is 3D software, basically. Now, I'm going to keep this here so that I could kind of like leave the window open, but still turn rendering on and off. Right now, it's rendering. If I hit this and then hit it again, I've just sent a 0 to JamWin. So we're not rendering. And that allows me to make our first thing that we're going to put in. We're going to make a square. We're going to type gem head. Every time you're making some gem objects, you're basically making a chain of things that do stuff. And they start with a gem head. So you always have that at the top. And I always like to put right above this gem head a toggle. This toggle can turn this chain of things that we're going to make on or off. It's just always convenient to have it there. Like when you're starting to make some objects, maybe you want some to be hidden so you can work with others. And this allows you to do that. Now, we're going to simply make a square first, and then we're going to add some stuff to it. All you have to do is make an object and type square. If you put a number in here to begin with, it will actually, I think the creation argument actually lets you set its size. Now, what I need to do here, we don't see anything because gem is not rendering, so we need to turn it on. And we see a square. Now this toggle up here will allow you to keep rendering in gem. Maybe you have other objects that you're making, but you just want to hide your square. Click this once and then twice. See, we needed to send a 0. We needed to actually turn off the check mark for gem head to receive a 0. When I had an empty toggle hooked up to it, the 0 doesn't actually get sent. Gem head is by default on. But now we can turn it on or off with a toggle. Okay, and so we're going to turn it off and add some things to this chain. Or actually here, let's do this first because this is part of it. We're going to put a number box here to control its size. Now, size in gem is different than in the data structures we've been working with, where a lot of things are pixels. In gem, like if I am in run mode and I scroll up, see things get bigger quicker. If I make it size 4, it's already at the top and the bottom of the screen. Size, specifically size in gem, is not in pixels, it's in units. And to be honest with you, I've been experimenting with it to see what those units are. It has to do with proportions of the window. For example, let's make this about half the same size. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is turn off rendering. Well, let's destroy the window. Let's make a new dimension size for it. Let's make it this 320 by 180 that's really small. It's half the size of this resolution. And you'll see what happens. I did a typo again, I'm sure. 320 by 180. Oh, hold on. Let me see. Maybe it did make it. Yeah, it made it. There it is. You see, proportionally, it's about the same size as it was. So it's not a literal size. It's kind of like a proportional size. And what I found is vertically 4 is about the max. So anyway, let's go back to our larger view though. So I just wanted to show you that. But when it comes to the width, when I was using it with a rectangle, I was having a hard time figuring out what was like the max width. So one thing is if you're going to change size in gem or have size changes going on, a lot of times it's good to do this. Right below this number box, we're going to create an object. Let's divide by 100. And hook these up. We're in kind of close quarters here. Yeah. Gotta space it out a little bit. Come on. Grab this. Move this. All right. Because now that divide by 100 is going to move it in much smaller increments. So I can scroll up, scroll down. As you see, negative seems to kind of like just do the same thing. So if we put 400 in, it's as tall as the whole screen. 200 in, about halfway. Okay, so that just makes it easier because now you can get in between sizes much more easily. Because a number box, unless you type it in directly, it doesn't do decimal points. So the divide by 100 allows us to do it. Okay, so I'm going to turn off this square because we're going to add to its chain. So that's its size control right there. Square only has one size control because its length and its width are always the same. That's what squares are. I'm going to try and move this down a little bit closer if I can. No, just leave it like that. All right. Next, we want to move it around. We use an object called translate. Now there's translate and there's translate XYZ. Let me show you what translate does. I think, hold on. Yeah, no, you can just type translate. And then, of course, you got to hook up the chain. The chain must be complete for it to work. You can put some creation arguments in, but I'm going to show you basically what translate does. I'm going to use message boxes for this. The rightmost inlet, you've got to tell it what you're translating. Now this is for moving, and we have X, Y, and Z dimensions. X is going this way, width, or side to side. Y is up and down. Z is backwards and forwards, because this is a three-dimensional space. So let's say we want to change and move it horizontally left and right. We got to put a 1 for X, a 0 for Y, and a 0 for Z. This is turning on translating the X coordinate and turning off the Y and Z coordinates. So we're going to send this in, and this has to be sent in a message like this, or using packed, something that sends all this information at once. So now we just send it saying we want to control the X-axis, and what we can do is take our, here, I am going to try to make these closer together. There we go. They take up less space. And then I'm going to select this, hit Control-T to duplicate. And now we can move this basically left and right horizontally. Positive numbers going that way, negative numbers going that way. So now we're translating across the X-axis. Alrighty. Well, now, say we want to translate across the Y-axis. That's up and down. We got to change this like this and actually click on the message to send it. Now we're moving up and down. And then Z is in and out. 0, space 0, space 1. That's nearer and farther. It's not actually making it bigger or smaller. It's moving it closer and further away, because this is a three-dimensional space. Now, sometimes maybe you want to have it move two ways at once. Let's say, hold on a second. Just need to mute to cough. Let's say we want to move somewhat of a diagonal. We can move X and Y, but not Z. Oh, I didn't click this to actually send it. It was still doing Z. But actually, yeah, let's move this further out so it's easier to see this. Click it and send it. There we go. Now we're going X and Y, which ends up being diagonal. So that is translate. That has its uses, but there's another form of translate that we're going to make right now. Ooh, I didn't turn this off. Might as well. It's called translate XYZ. Now this, you don't need to be sending a message into it to tell it whether to move along the X-axis, the Y-axis, the Z-axis. You just put in the numbers going to X, Y, and Z. And both of these objects can have creation arguments put in, so you can say what their starting state is. Maybe in this case, it would be a good idea to say 0, 0, 0. That means dead center. Now I'm going to take this number box down here. Move it up here. Duplicate it again. Control D, duplicate again. Okay, now we turn it back on. And we can go X, Y, Z. I kind of like that. Now, we're going to go on to our next way of controlling things. There's something called rotate. And it has two versions. There's just rotate, which is a lot like translate. You got to send in messages saying what axis you want to rotate on. It has the two inlets, the one on the right for which axis you want to rotate on, using the same 3-number on-off switch sort of thing to say which axes you want to rotate on. Or you can use rotate XYZ, which is the same thing as this translate XYZ. So I'm just going to start off with this. Give it some default values of 0, 0, 0. Hold on, I must have had a typo. Notice how X, Y, Z here are capitalized. You got to do that. Let me try not putting in the default. Okay, it didn't want the creation arguments. Translate, it allows you to put them in. Rotate, it doesn't want them. Let me look at its help file real quick, just to see if that's true. You can't have, you see it rotated it already a little bit there. That's why I would like to have a creation argument. Here's where its inlets are for rotating on the x-axis, the y-axis, and the z-axis. Yay. Arguments. First through third. Arguments. No, rotation in degrees on the x, y, and z axis. Well, 0 is a degree. Let me try that again one more time, because it would also be nice for the object to be wider. It worked. I don't know. I must have been typing something wrong before. I was going to say, that don't make sense. Okay, and then I'm going to copy these by Control D, duplicating, and move all three at once up here. Now I'm going to turn it on. And when I turn it back on again, yeah, it looks like the translate went back to the defaults. Okay, good. And I'd have to move these number boxes again to move them to where I had them before. So here, let's look at rotate. Now, these are axes. The x-axis is horizontal like this. So when you see this rotate, you're going to see it flipping over, forward, or backward, because it's rotating on the axis. Huh? Huh? Oh, I know what the problem is. Rotate is in degrees. When we divide by 100, we're hardly moving it. Degrees are 0 to 360. So here, we can use the number boxes without the divide by 100. There you go. So it's flipping on that. Imagine a horizontal axis going across the screen. It's rotating around that. And now we'll do it with the y-axis. There we go. And now z, it's rotating on that axis, which is like that. There we go. So you can see a lot of these basic thingamabobbers. So you have rotate and translate that are commonly used. Now there's something else there. These are objects, as you notice. There are some messages that you can send about how your square is drawn. Draw, line, draw, fill, oh, nope, cancel that. and draw points. Draw a line. Oh, I didn't hook it up. I missed. Come on. Makes it a line outline. Draw a fill, fills it in, and draw points. It's hard to see, but we have 1, 2, 3, 4 points here. It's basically the points that make up that structure. But we can go back to fill. Now there's another object that is a very basic object that's good to be used. And that is, I'm actually going to move this down further. Let's turn this off first. I've been able to disconnect this cable without causing problems. I'm just being careful. I'm going to make one up here because I'm going to put something else in the middle. There's color. Now, it's good if you're going to put default input 1, 1, 1. Color in Gem is RGB, but it's not in the normal range of 0 to 255. It's in the range of 0 to 1. 0, 0, 0 is black. 1, 1, 1 is white. How are you doing? And then 1, 0, 0 would be red with the red channel fully on. 0, 1, 0 would be green with the green channel fully on. 0, 0, 1 would be blue. If you have 1, 1, 0, I think you get yellow. And obviously, if it's 0, 1, 1, it's some sort of aqua color. Now, this is something where, since it's a range of 0 to 1, dividing by 100 makes it a lot easier to change these colors and get different shades. Oh, no, 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 that's right. It's got to be sent in by a message. So what you would do, if you wanted to do that other thing, oh, we can use it. We can use it. I mean, if you don't want to send, if you want to be able to gradually change colors on the thing, you got to send this as a packed message. You can send a message with, you know, a range of 0 to 1 separated by spaces, like 0.5, 0.25, 0.3, you know, stuff like that. But this is a way of doing it a little bit better. We're going to do pack FFF. That means float, float, float. Packing 3 numbers together as a single message and popping it in here. Now, the thing is, the way pack works is when you move this leftmost thing and you put a new number in here, it automatically sends the message. But it doesn't automatically send the message if you change values in the second and the third. So what you have to do is put in trigger bang floats to make sure the value changes when you're altering these numbers too. So we're going to put in a trigger, bang float, and let me move this down a bit so you can see where the patch cables are going. Here's the bang. Like when a number comes in, it sends a bang to the left inlet, because a bang here will send whatever numbers are here. Whatever the numbers, the most recent numbers that have come into here. And so basically when you change any of the values here, it does it. And so we need to hook the bang up here, the left inlet, and the float to the third inlet. There we go. Now let's turn on our square. Let's turn up its red channel a little bit. What? Oh, there we go. Yeah. I needed to move it up a bit. Since we're dividing by 100 and the range is 0 to 1, 0, 0, 0 came through and made it black, which is the same as our background. So we can add a little green to it. And you see it gets yellowish. And let's turn up our blue channel. If we turn this green channel to 0, we got purple. So there you go. That's how you can control colors a little bit more easily. Now I'm going to try one last thing here. And with the square, and then I'll show you that you can do these with other shapes. I'm going to show you some other shapes. Some other basic shapes. We're starting with the basics. We will get, I mean, this stuff can get really advanced. Really advanced. But we're just starting with basic shapes right now because we got to learn the fundamentals, like how the sizing works and all that stuff. We're going to try to work with an image now. Now let me find an image on disk that I can work with here. I'm going to go into my I don't want to bang something out in Photoshop and take too much time right now. Although actually, yeah, I can pause and do that. So let me do that. Let me make something in Photoshop that's like a texture. Okay, I just made a gradient here of green to blue at the size of 100 by 100 pixels in Photoshop. I'm going to save this out. PNG. And I'm going to have to save my other file too. I haven't saved it yet. I usually save it right away. But this is where I keep my stuff for PD Loric documents. Oh, that's desktop documents. PD Loric. Here's the series. Let's make the episode 6 folder. And I'm going to call this gradient. All lowercase. You got to be, it's case sensitive in PD. Okay, good. Now I made it 100 by 100 pixels because I want to see something. I want to see how a smaller image like that maps onto something that's probably going to get bigger with this square. And now what I need to do is save this in the same folder. File. Save as. PD Loric. episode 6 right there. And we're going to call this Gem Basics. Alrighty. Now, this is what I'm going to do. After color, the color be first in order here. I am going to put in, what do we call it? I'm trying to remember the name. Pix_image, and then the file name, gradient.png. Beauty about PNGs is you can also change their opacity, and they have a transparency on them. So you can do stuff with that. And then I'm going to put in the chain here, Pix_texture. It's got to be after the image. Okay, now let's turn this on. See what happens. There we go. It looks like we're seeing some of the, here, let me take these colors. Make sure there's no color behind it. Although, maybe there wasn't. Okay. What happens if I make the color white? Then it's kind of like a white canvas. Oh, that's right. Here I got to type 100 because we're dividing by 100. There we go. So when you have a white background and you map an image on it, it's almost like putting this image on a white background, like a white blank piece of paper. So if you have a 000 black background, you don't see the image. That's interesting. And before we were seeing a little bit of the purple coming through when we had the purple color. So, but as you see, this is bigger than 100 by 100 pixels. So it stretches the image when you texture. It stretches it to fit the object that you're putting it on. Okay, we're going to do one more thing here. I am going to set things up. So now you see how you can change things. I'm going to set things up so that I could show you some other objects. But to make that happen, I'm just going to put defaults in. Color 111, that's good because we're putting an image on this square. We need the Pix image to load the image. And this to texture it. I guess the texture can go before or after the translate and the rotate. But rotate, let's leave that at 000. What I'm going to have to do, turn this off. You see, it's already rotated and it's maintaining that rotation. Let's destroy and create again. It's still remembering the rotation that it had. Or that could be translate. No, translate wouldn't do that. Here. You see, well, what happens, I mean, if we turn it off and on here with the gem head, it doesn't get rid of it. What if we do this? Let's turn this off. Let's give it a new gem head. That's still looking rotated to me. I'm going to close this and reopen it, but let me finish what I was planning on doing here. And translate, I'm going to put this, I'm going to have it placed. -1x, +1y, and 0z. Of course, it didn't actually do that, but I'm going to see if I save. Let's destroy the window and close. I'm going to reopen it again and see if it reinitiates those values. Because that rotate was still there. Even I put a new gem head in. Now, gem heads also have a priority number associated with them. By default, it's 50. But that, I thought, was pretty much to show which one is more in the foreground than others. You know, like layers. But maybe it's somewhat of an ID, too. Oh, I'm opening it up with... I do have gem in PD Vanilla, but we're in Loric in this series, so... Gotta open up... Okay. Create. Yay. Huh. Yeah. So, there we go. I was able to get it up in its spot there. It's basically, according to the translate coordinates, -1 on the x-axis, +1 y, and z means it's not forward or backwards from us. It's in that middle ground. Now, as you'll be able to see here, I am going to copy... Well, no, let's just make this. I am going to make gem head. I'm going to say 51. By default, the ID of priority is 50 if you don't type anything in. 51 means this would be on top of this. So we're going to make a color. Let's do yellow. 1, 1, 0. We're not going to do pictures and texturizing with this one. And we're not going to rotate it. Let's just put a rectangle in. Now you can't just type rectangle. Oh, you can. Before I had trouble with that. And what is its default? Well, it's 1 by 1, so it's the same as a square. We're going to do rectangle 2 by 1. And these inlets here allow you to send size. It's once again using these units, not pixels. But this is length and this is height. Or I guess that's really width and height. Now, what else do we have here? Gem head 52. And we'll make this one color 1 0 1, which will be purple. And what are we gonna do? Let's translate and move this further down. So I hit Control 1 again. Translate XYZ. Oh, remember they have to be capitalized. We're gonna say 2. That means over this way horizontally, and then we're going to go down 2. So that's -2 on the y-axis and 0 on the z-axis. And then we're going to put here, oh, I didn't put it in, oh, I did, 52. So this is on top. You see how the yellow rectangle covers up our square there a little bit? Okay, so here, let's put in a circle. There we go. And you see it's 52 priority puts it overlapping the rectangle. And so if you really think about it, you can make like little things like your data structures here and stuff like that. Although the data structure things, I think, is easier in drawing shapes and all that stuff, the path command and all that, polygons. But you can do all sorts of stuff with this too. And then there is a triangle as well. Let's make that. Gem head 53. Color, let's make it kind of orangish. 1, 0.8. And then 0.4 or something like that would be almost orange. Translate, let's put it, XYZ. We're going to do 0, but -4 and 0. And it's going to be a triangle. And let's make it size 0.25. Make it small. Oh, maybe this 4 moved it off screen here. Now, the thing is, if I change it here, probably not going to take. Oh, 4 was up above. Let me do -4, 0. Yeah, it's probably not going to move it. I think it's up above off screen, but 4 might be moving it off screen down below too. Let's do this. Let's make it -3 and pop that into the Y right here and translate. There it is. We got it on screen. So yeah, 4 is starting to push things off screen. But as you see, 0.25 gives you a triangle that size. All right. Well, you know, I think what we've done is we've covered enough of these gem basics for this week. So for my students, your patches like this, you're good. But you know what? This is what you should do. Because when I open it up, I want this fixed. So take out the -4 as the default there. And put in a -3. I had to send a message because as you see, until you restart, hold on here, -3. Until you restart, it doesn't actually move things. But this way, when I download your patches, I got it. You could use whatever kind of image you want as a gradient, although, you know what? Let's move that up so we can see it. So we're going to take the square and we're going to make this 2 here. But just so we can see where that's going to be when it opens, let's just send the 2 message here now. So yeah, these creation arguments don't come into effect until it's opened. But there, so that way I can see whatever. You can use whatever picture you want here. And it doesn't have to be 100 by 100, just something that looks decent. But there we go. So hopefully that shows you some of the basic concepts. Next time, we're going to do more 2-dimensional art, except we'll get a little bit deeper into it. You can also load images in. There are other 2-dimensional shapes that go beyond this, like this is just an equilateral triangle. You can make different triangular shapes and all sorts of things. So we'll be exploring what you can do 2D wise further in the next episode. But for now, let me get a screenshot of this. And stuff for the thumbnail. And thank you for joining me. You all take care. Stay free.